Hey everyone, welcome to Singularity Beast 2, build log part 6. Now I've done a lot of work on the build since part 5 and it's all been on the wiring. The system is now ready for the transition between the Singularity Beast and Singularity Beast 2. So towards the end of this video I'll be showing you me pulling the hardware out of the Singularity Beast. Also in this video I need to catch you up on what I've done since part 5, so I'll be talking about the wiring. Also in this video I need to cover a few of the things that I've missed. For example, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the tubing routing and the fittings that I've used. So I've mentioned previously that I was waiting on a couple of orders. Those orders have both arrived now. But I am going to make one final order. I'm not going to do it though until the system is up and running, because I keep adding things to the list. I keep finding things that I need. And that's something else that I'm going to talk about in this video. Some of the things that are temporary in this build that I've had to set up until I receive this final order. The next step now is to get the hardware from the Singularity Beast. I can't do anything else until I get that hardware and starting installing it into this system. So that hardware is the graphics cards, hard drives, power supply, the second power supply, and 2 pumps. So everything is in now and ready to go. All the cable management is done. All the tubing is done that I can possibly do. So yeah, while I'm talking about the tubing, I'm going to give you a look at the tubing routing. So it comes out of the reservoir, goes through the 2 pumps, out of the pumps into the first radiator, through the first radiator, out and into the back of the system. Now just ignore all the cable management for now because I'm going to talk about that shortly. But we've got a big long tube here, and I've mentioned why I had no choice. I just have to have this long tube here. Unless I have cross flow radiators, but yeah, that's really not an option at this point. So then it goes into the top quad radiator on this side, out of the top quad radiator, and you can see it goes into the top quad radiator on the other side. So obviously 3 quad 120mm radiators, so 3 480mm radiators in the build. So then it comes, yeah, you can see it coming across there, and then it goes into this radiator here, out of that radiator, and then into the CPU. Then it will go out of the CPU into the graphics cards. So I've just got to put one little tube across here once I've got the graphics cards in. Then I'll come out of the graphics cards, a 90-degree elbow fitting just there, straight across to here. Okay, now the fittings. So first of all I'll talk about the quick disconnects. So I still have to put one quick disconnect here. I've already got a quick disconnect here. Now the reason I'm putting one here and one there is so that I can undo them and remove the motherboard tray. Keep in mind this is a removable motherboard tray, and I want to be able to remove the motherboard tray easily. So 2 quick disconnects and that motherboard tray comes out. One there, one there. So that's what they're for. I've also got one on the other side, and that's for draining. Under the reservoir I have 2 extension fittings. I've got a dual G1/4 inch thread fitting, so 2 male threads, one on either side directly under the reservoir, and then I've got a 15mm extension fitting. Here I have a 90-degree single rotary fitting. Now these are all Bits Power black sparkle fittings, every single one. So I'm using all compression fittings right through the build, Bits Power black sparkle. Okay, so single rotary, and then over here we have a dual rotary 90-degree fitting. Here we have another dual rotary 90-degree fitting, and you can see there how I have used them differently. They're great fittings for getting all the different angles. Underneath that I've got an extension fitting, just a very short one. It gives you about an extra 5mm. That was just to get that fitting up high enough to angle it over the top of that fan there. Then I have another extension fitting. It's a 15mm, and then a single rotary 90-degree fitting there. Now moving around the other side, so you can see that these are coolants, VL4N quick disconnects, by the way, all of them. So to drain, I just undo that, drop this down here. The quick disconnect hangs out about that far, it sits about there. So what I do then is get a spare, like the other side of a quick disconnect, which I've got plenty of spares sitting around, push it into the quick disconnect, and that's it, it starts draining. So that'll drain the entire system, because that is the lowest point of the loop. I mean, the radiator on the other side will stay full, but once it's drained down to the level of that radiator, it's very easy to undo everything and pull it out, and also pull that radiator out. So here I have a single rotary 90-degree and a big long extension. This is a 30mm extension here. On the other side of this radiator, I have exactly the same thing. Oh no, hang on. No, I have a short extension fitting and then another single rotary 90-degree. So one of those 5mm extension fittings. Okay, moving around, I have, yeah, just oh hang on, yeah, same thing again. So I have a short extension fitting and a single rotary 90-degree, and then just a straight compression fitting there. Quick disconnect, then I have a dual rotary 90-degree and another dual rotary 90-degree, and I'll probably have another dual rotary 90-degree on top of the graphics cards, and then, as I said, a single rotary 90-degree on the bottom of the cards back to here. So that's all the fittings and the loop. I've screwed the Bits Power mod kits for the pumps on the back here. They're just empty. The pumps go inside those. I'm going to show you how that all works when I'm installing the pumps. But that's basically what it'll look like once the pumps are installed, just with wires coming out of the back. I have a temperature probe that I've installed here. It's a Bits Power temperature probe that goes into the coolant, into the loop. Now I've run this over to here. It just plugs in next to that 4-pin fan just there. And luckily on this motherboard there's 3 temperature sensor headers. Operating temperature 1, 2 and 3. So what it means is I'll be able to read my coolant temperature in the BIOS off the motherboard, and also within any software. Like I run AIDA64, so I'll be able to get the coolant temperature on my desktop, which will be very, very good to have. So these 3 fans here, so basically these are the Thermalright case fans that I'm using. As I mentioned, I'm using 2 different types of fans. The Phobia fans on the Rads, of which there's 12, and then I've got these Thermalright case fans, and I'm not sure how many of these I'll be using yet, but I've got 3 on the front there. They're sucking in, okay? So I'm going to talk about my thermal setup now. So these fans are sucking in. These fans are all sucking in. These fans are exhausting out. And so are the fans on the other side here. Okay, I'm going to put dust filters everywhere because, you know, even though these are exhausting, I don't usually put dust filters on exhaust fans, but dust can drop in through the front. So I've got dust filters completely dust filtered on the front. I've got the dust filters underneath, and yeah, that means that everything is dust filtered. I've still got some case fans to add, and I haven't. What I'm going to do is count up the fans that are sucking in and count up the fans that are sucking out. And I'm going to make sure that there's positive pressure inside the case. The reason I want positive pressure inside the case is so that dust doesn't get sucked in through any of the gaps, like, you know, in where there's gaps in the side panels, anywhere there might be gaps. If there's negative pressure inside the case, dust will get sucked in somewhere, for example just here. So positive pressure inside the case, not majorly, but yeah, just a little bit. So definitely more fans sucking in than out. So yeah, there's still quite a few case fans to add. I might even be adding some in the floor on the other side yet. Now all 3 of these fans just here I've connected to the motherboard, and those are the only fans that I'm going to have connected to the motherboard. So I've got 1, 2 and 3, 1 under there. So as I've said, I've done all the wiring and cable management. I haven't plugged in all these SATA cables yet. I'm using these Phobia SATA 3 sleeved cables. They're very nice, high quality, very nice looking cables. So I've basically got 5 of those to plug in, and then I'll wire them all up once the hard drives are in. Now I've got this is actually an extension cable here, and I talked about what type of extension cables I'm using in part 5. This goes to the dual power supply starter in the back. So as you can see, I've done a lot of work on the wiring since part 5, and you know, it's all finished now except for the temporary wiring, and also except for the wiring to the graphics cards, which will come off the top power supply. So it'll be very easy. I'll just install that top power supply, run the wires to the graphics cards, and that's it. The rest comes off this one, and I think that's a good way of splitting it. I think that'll be reasonably equal. I mean, I can change it around if I want to. It's just a matter of swapping some plugs. So I'm going to start off by talking about what is temporary, and it's the wiring for the 4 fans on this radiator and the 4 fans on the radiator on the floor on the other side. So these just here come from this top radiator, and they go, I've wired them up to this Bits Power X station. So this loop here is temporary. Also, all of this wiring all the way up to here is all temporary, and so is this. All this will be gone, and these wires here will just go straight out through there to the other fan controller. So moving on to this X station. This X station is for the cold cathodes and all the lighting besides the LEDs, which the LEDs are also temporarily wired up to this X station. So those 2 connectors there go to the temporary LEDs. I haven't done any other lighting yet, and I won't be until the final order arrives. So temporarily I've got 4 fans hooked up to this, and also the 2 LEDs. Now the way the switch panels work, so I've got the big switch controlling this X station, and I'll have the small switch controlling the LED station. I've got my SATA power hanging down here ready to go. I've got 6 of those, so that'll cover all my hard drives without a problem. I've got one of the SATA data cables here, so that's not wired up yet. Down here I've got an extra 3-pin, well actually two extra 3-pin down there, and that's for the fans on the hard drive cages, which go there and there. And I've also wired up the other 2 fans here. I've got this fan and also that fan up there. So they're all wired up. I'm using Bitphoenix triple splitters for those, which run off a Molex. The motherboard power cable, there's an extension going into this. Now I showed you this in part 5. It's a dual power supply starter. So you can see the extension goes in there, and then down there the power supply is connected straight into that. And out of this, there it is, comes another 24-pin motherboard power connector. So the other power supply will connect straight into that. Basically all that I need to hook up to Molex now is the pumps. I've got two more Molex just down there for the pumps, and I've got another Molex here which actually goes to the floppy power on the motherboard for the extra power to the DIMMs. So that'll be changed around a little bit when I get the proper extension cables for that. That goes to the LEDs in the EK Supreme HF, so that'll be gone. This will be gone because this is a temporary extension to the floppy on the motherboard, the floppy power on the motherboard. So yeah, that's basically it. That's the way I've routed all of my power. There's probably a couple of little things that I've forgotten. It looks really messy through the camera, but I mean, what makes it look messy is this stuff here, which, you know, that's temporary. Also this makes it look messy, which is temporary. So, you know, once it's all finished and all this is wired up here and, you know, this, then it'll look a lot better. Also the, you know, all of the wiring going to the X station so far is just temp. So also consider that the hard drive bays will be in there, covering like all of that up just there. So that's about it. That is all I've got to talk about. Now it's time to start getting the hardware out of the Singularity Beast and transferring it into this system. Okay, I'm just starting to pull the hardware out of the Singularity Beast now, and I'm going to get the graphics cards out first, I think. So yeah, I'm just starting to do that now. I might time-lapse a bit of this because it will take me a little while. So what I'm doing here is pushing one side of a quick disconnect. These are Coolant's VL4N quick disconnects. So you can see when you undo them, they shut off. They're a no-spill quick disconnect. But obviously, if you push a quick disconnect back on again, like this, you can use them to drain the system. I'm just undoing the top of the reservoir now to allow some air to get in. This one's actually leaking, which doesn't normally happen. It might have something in the O-ring or something, but that's okay. So reservoir is empty, and I'm now going to undo one of the quick disconnects at the top of the build. Alright, that one's undone. Now what I need to do is, I undid that to let air into the graphics cards so that more coolant can escape. So now I'm just using something to open up the quick disconnect in the top. I'm actually just using a screwdriver. It doesn't damage the quick disconnect or anything. Just to drain a bit more out. Okay, so that's stopped now. There's probably more in there though. Now I'm removing the reservoir. So this is, you know, all because of the way that I designed this system. I designed it to be drained easily, which you always need to do with a water cooling system, unless you want it to be an absolute pain. Because seriously, if you don't think about how you're going to drain it when you're building it, you are going to have a very annoying system on your hands. Because sometimes, you know, I've seen them designed where you've basically got to tip them upside down to drain them. Alright, there goes the reservoir. Just put that down. I've got a big towel down here on the floor to lay everything on so that I don't have to bother, you know, draining it all out and cleaning it all up properly yet. Just going to open up that quick disconnect again, see if there's anything more in there. That seems to be about it. Next thing is to undo the tube off the top of the graphics cards. So, gosh, there's dust everywhere. I haven't dust cleaned this system for about a month now, so okay, just going to undo this tube. The coolant should be out of it because I've already drained, you know, I was just draining this tube just then, but just in case, I am not taking any risks. You've always put a towel under where you're going to undo a tube, even if you think it's drained. Because you never know, there might be a pocket of coolant sitting somewhere. You can't rely on gravity, because if air can't get into the loop, then it's not going to drain. So that tube is completely drained. Just going to pull that up there. You can trust that tube now. Now I need to undo these two quick disconnects here so that I can get the graphics cards out. These are a little bit difficult to undo. So I think you'll be able to see that, how much is in there, hardly anything. Undo the CPU loop. So I'm going to need to get these pumps out as well, but I'm just going to start by getting the graphics cards out, and I'll worry about the pumps and everything else later. So that's about it for coolant for the moment. Got some dust in the end of that tube there, that's alright though. I won't be using these tubes again. They'll all be getting thrown out. And I might put some brand new fittings here and here as well, you know, just in case the O-rings are a bit worn out. I mean, I do have spare O-rings, but I am in a hurry because I've got to get the system back up and running so that I can upload all these videos. I mean, I've got other systems that I can edit on and upload from, but I use my primary system for everything. You know, that's why it's my primary system. So just undoing all the graphics cards now. Now comes the boring part, so I might just time lapse this. Okay, graphics cards are out. I'm just going to sit them up here and get all the dust off them before I put them into the new system. Just changing the SLI bridge here to the other one. That's for the Rampage 3, that's for the Rampage 4. Not that it matters, but okay, I'm just going to get rid of this coolant so that I can start turning these things over. Now just removing the old tubing and fittings. No doubt these will be on, oh no, they're not too bad. Okay, that's it. Graphics cards are ready to go into the new build. Just draining the last little bit of coolant out. Okay, I'm going to leave part 6 of the build log there. Most of you can probably see that I'm actually filming this little conclusion later and the system is now up and running. Part 7 will follow straight on from where part 6 left off. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like and favourite if you want to see more. Thanks everyone.